It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You've been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there may be a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, perhaps instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to the possibilities of love and caring, a home for your heart, a home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome to that community. Welcome home.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. My name is Cynthia Asphrodites. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm one of the worship associates for today's service. This is a welcoming congregation, and we're always working on how to better welcome and care for one another. If this is your first time joining us, we are so glad you've come. And whoever you are, we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. As we begin, we take this moment to acknowledge that this church occupies unceded Chochenyo and Muwekma Ohlone land. As community and church members, we continue to benefit from the seizure and occupation of this land. We want to affirm that this is not simply performative, but is deeply felt and is a commitment toward action. For more information, please visit uucb.org/indigenous. Now please take a moment to prepare yourself and your space for our time together. You might get a candle and a way to light it so you can join in the chalice lighting at home. Let us kindle our flames with the words of Bruce Southworth. For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul. I now invite you to share in the comments where you are by writing, "I carry the flame in," whatever town or city you are joining us from. Now, please join us in singing our opening song, "When Our Heart is in a Holy Place." The words will be on screen.
With love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place. When we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell a story from deep inside, and we listen with a lovely mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of secret space, and the love of our stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Please join with me in saying our covenant. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another.
Steal away, steal away, steal away to by the thunder. The trumpet sounds within my soul. I long to stay. Trumpet sounds within my soul. I long to stay. Trees are bending, old sinners stand a trembling. The trumpet sounds within my soul. Ain't God long to stay?
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Catherine Boyle. My pronouns are she, hers, hers, and today I'm back with another Black UU history legend for the Time for All Ages. So if you're young or young at heart, strap in and get close because the person I'm talking about today is Fanny Berrier-Williams, and she is a shooting star. This comes from the UU White Supremacy Teaching Series, and with that, let us begin. In 1893, Fanny Berrier-Williams wrote, "What can religion further do to advance the condition of the colored people? More religion and less church, less theology and more human brotherhood, and more common sense and love for truth." Fanny Berrier was angry. She was furious. She was embarrassed and hurt and disgusted. She had discovered that no matter how talented, educated, and polite she was, her race made her a second-class citizen. In Washington, D.C., where she herself was a teacher, she had decided to take a painting class. There, she had discovered that her art instructor had erected screens to separate her from the white students in the class. Thinking that things would be better in the North, she had enrolled in a music school in Boston. The principal there had told her she had to leave the school because some of the white students were threatening to quit. They had to go to school with black person. Fanny had a lot of gifts. She was a talented painter, a pianist, a good student, and a good friend. She had grown up in Brockport, New York, a mostly white town during and after the Civil War, where she felt accepted as a social equal. It was only when she set out to do something quote unquote large or out of the ordinary in her life that she smacked against a system that said she was of less value than white people. And it was when she bumped against that system, she found her greatest gifts and used them to help people whose lives were more difficult than her own. Fanny met and married a young lawyer, becoming Fanny Barrier Williams. They moved to Chicago, where they lived on the South Side, a primarily Black neighborhood. She made friends with many people, Black and white, who were interested in arts and music and discussions about all sorts of things. She also worked hard to help those in her community, especially Black women, who, because of prejudice, were unable to find jobs to help support their families. Because she had so many white friends, she decided to try and persuade some of them to offer jobs to skilled Black women. She soon discovered that just because a white person was kind to her as an individual did not mean that they would give Black women a chance to prove themselves as workers. One manager, when she asked him to hire Black women, went on and on about how his parents raised him to believe that slavery was wrong. But when she pressed him to offer Black women jobs, he said no, because it would be too disruptive to his business. When she told him that his Christian faith called him to do better, he disagreed. During her years in Chicago, Fanny Barrier Williams met and became friendly with Deacon Lloyd Jones, minister of the Unitarian Church of All Souls. She joined the church and was active in the establishment of the Abraham Lincoln Center, which served all those in need, regardless of race. In 1893, Chicago was all excited. They were going to host a big fair, as a part of this, her minister organized a World Parliament of Religion, a gathering where people from all over the world could come and learn about each other's religion. Fanny Barrier Williams discovered that there were no women of color on the planning team and pushed hard to fix that. Eventually, she was invited not to just be a part of the organizing team, but to speak. There, she gave her famous speech, Religious Duty to the Negro, saying that churches should do a better job of practicing what they were preaching when it came to justice for Black people. The speech was powerful, and she became famous. Soon, she was invited to deliver her message everywhere. She became a paid speaker, sometimes pairing her speeches with a piano concert. Fanny Barrier Williams, whose gifts and talents were many, and who herself was financially comfortable, never forgot the Black women whose paths were even more difficult than hers. All her life, she fought the racism that kept Black people from the jobs and education that they needed to survive and offer their own talents to the world. We honor her among our UU ancestors. That's Fanny Barrier Williams. I hope all of my friends, all of my children and youth join us in RE today at 12:15. Thank you.
We now enter into the time in our service we make for our hearts, our spirits, our concerns, our cares for one another and those that we are carrying for ourselves. We lift up and hold the joys, the sorrows, and the challenges we may each be facing. During our time of silence this morning, I invite you to share any joys or sorrows or significant milestones of your own in the comments section. I invite us all to hold these cares in the compassionate embrace of this loving community. And today I especially lift up into the enfolding love of this community, into our care those throughout our country who may be facing challenges from the winter storms that are facing us. For those that we know, those that we worry about, and for the many facing these challenges, I lift these up to our hearts. Let us enter into a time of meditation, contemplation, a time of prayer. I invite you to feel the floor, the ground, the earth beneath your feet as it supports you. Feel the love of this community as it surrounds and enfolds you. Feel your breath as it flows in and out of your body, in and out. Listen to your heartbeat, to the sound of your heart. How is it with your heart? Does your heart feel whole? Does it feel shielded by intellect, cocooned by reason? Is feeling allowed in, or is it closed to feeling? Or is your heart broken, fragile to the touch, brimming with the pain of losses? And has your heart been broken and healed so many times that it now lies open to the world, knowing that true growth comes not without pain, that tears may wear down barriers, that we may carry the hearts of others even when our own is too heavy for us to bear? Not a one of us has an unblemished heart, for such perfection may only be found in death. Instead, we who are alive still have much to heal. So let us give thanks for the broken places in our hearts, for the cracks in our hearts and in our lives. For it is only through such brokenness that we may truly touch one another, and only through touching one another that the world may be healed. Let us give thanks for this brokenness and fragileness that we share. Amen. And now let us join in singing a classic Unitarian Universalist hymn, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may the fortune drenching our lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. Without the drum, the rockets shout, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
At last week's congregational meeting, we awarded Flaming Chalice Awards to Victoria Bowen, Catherine J., Ariel Smith-Iyer, and Helen Toy, in recognition of extraordinary service to our church community for at least 5 years, having been a supporter of the church and having been active in one or more principal activities of the church during that time. The church's second annual award is the Schweitzer Medal. It is given to up to 2 members each year who are supporter of Unitarian Universalist churches for at least 15 years and of our church for 5 years, who have participated in a number of church functions above and beyond the normal call of duty, who have been church leaders, and who have participated in outreach activities. We postponed our 2020 May Schweitzer ceremony in hopes of presenting the 2 awards in person. Not wanting to wait any longer, today we are presenting those Schweitzer medals to our extraordinary members, Deborah Schmidt and Barbara Cullinane. I now introduce Carrie Simpson to present the award to Deborah Schmidt, followed by my presentation to Barbara Cullinane. Please congratulate our honorees as you see them virtually or in person.
It is an honor and privilege to recognize Deborah Schmidt as a Schweitzer recipient. Deborah gave us her gifts as soon as she came to UUCB, playing the flute, heading the children's choir, and singing in the choir. Did you know, per Sandra Sutherland, that Deborah has the best sense of rhythm of anyone she knew? And in her poetry, we have her beautiful words, set to music even. Such a very talented presence in our church community. In 2013, Deborah agreed to run for the board. She served as president for 2 years. Deborah's dignity and even-handed leadership was so positive for the board. At a time when there was division and rancor, she moved the board to honor and practice being in covenant with one another. The kindness and caring that our board members bring to their deliberations is part of her legacy. In 2017, the church was in trouble. We had a financial mess, our business administrator was gone, our long-term custodian left his position. Knowing all of this, Deborah agreed to serve on the coordinating team and be its chair. She held UUCB together. In fact, on several occasions, because we lacked an events coordinator and custodian, Deborah stepped in to cover events. On one particular weekend, she personally managed 13 events. Her competence and generosity got us through a very difficult period. To earn the Schweitzer Award, one must show above and beyond leadership, caring, and time given to the church. Yes, yes, and yes. Deborah merits this honor. Absolutely. I want to talk about Deborah the woman, wife, mother, friend. Here are the words used to describe Deborah by church members with whom I spoke. Gentle, quiet leadership, tactful, thoughtful, even-handed, disarming smile, comes from a centered place, settles people down, peacemaker, worked hard, one of his heroes, wonderful musician, very talented, good writer, good person, principled, committed and devoted to UUCB, warm spiritual presence, brilliantly articulate, tolerant, just there when needed, quietly very strong, caring, good heart, good person, warmth, affirming, lives our covenant in relationship with others, only alkaloids. Finally, from my interview with Deborah, when she talked about her children and asked what she and Daniel sought for them, she commented that they had instilled in them the whole range of what it means to be human, to live with courage. In closing, Deborah Schmidt is an amazing woman. I love her. She is one of my heroes. May many blessings flow to you and your family, Deborah. Congratulations. Please come forward, Deborah.
Oh my goodness, I am so moved. Thank you, Carrie. I'm going to put on this beautiful medal gift from all of you with my thanks, everyone. I'm so honored to be standing here with some of my heroes and to be in community with all of you. All of this happened because I love all of you so much. You have truly seen me, had faith in me, and supported me to spread my wings. You have taught me so much, individually and collectively, about what it means to be in community with each other. The reason I was drawn into governance here is that we have such a unique opportunity to practice democracy in a loving, effective way within a village just the size that we humans evolved to function best in. These have been rocky times with not one but two ministerial transitions in the context of internal financial stress and rapid worldwide change. Yet through it all, my belief in the stability of this community and in what we stand for has only deepened. We bring creative and loving solutions to our challenges, and what we offer is really needed in this world. I keep revisiting our mission statement, which begins with loving community, moves through spiritual growth, and ends with lives of integrity, joy, and service. There is in that statement an intentional, organic ordering of those overlapping, coexisting, and ever unfolding phases in our lives. And it is you who have called me to live this, beginning in loving community with all of you, being supported and challenged by you and with you to stretch and grow, and being moved to give back. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
You know the feeling when someone looks at you and really sees you, or listens to you and truly hears you, or says they care and sincerely means it? And to get all three, that is what it is like to be with Barbara Cullinane. A countless number of congregants being deeply seen, listened to, and cared for is what the church got when Barbara, along with her husband Patrick, came to us in 1989. Through the years, Barbara has consistently, conscientiously, and compassionately shown her love and skill in caring about and for members through our individual challenges. I know because it was Barbara who I called when my mom went into hospice. This unique talent was initially contributed informally through her many volunteer roles. It expanded after she retired from a career in social work with older people and their families in 2013. After joining the Caring Circle, she was tapped with others to create the Pastoral Associates and later became chair. I can't imagine anyone else handling this responsibility with such care and thoughtfulness. Barbara is a wise and empathetic person, are among her colleagues' comments about her service. In addition to her big heart, thorough, responsible, collaborative, and thoughtful partner who loves to learn. Among Barbara's many other roles have been worship associate in the 1990s, evensong co-leader, stewardship connector, sharing our journey and homily speaker, member of the committees on ministry, Chalice Circle leadership, adult education, safety response, ushers, program council, and even snake handler and wicked stepsister in UUCB productions. In our last capital campaign, she was project manager for a book of reflections, personal testimonials valuing UUCB. Because of Barbara's dedicated and inspiring work, UUCB is a more connected, supported, and loving community. It is my honor to present Barbara Cullinane with the Schweitzer Medal.
Beth, thank you so much for those very warm words. I feel so privileged to receive this award from you and to call you my dear friend. My path to this valued Schweitzer Award began more than 30 years ago when I visited UUCB for the first time and was really moved by the service. My life further changed when beloved matriarch Martha Hellman engaged me in conversation after the service. Not long after Patrick and I joined the church, Martha invited me to join the Adult Education Committee, which she chaired. After saying yes to Martha and enjoying our work together, I began saying yes again. Every time someone asked me to do something interesting I thought I might be able to do. And actually, I said yes a number of times, not because I thought I could do something, but because someone I respected, like Martha, expressed confidence in my ability to do it. So if they thought I could do it, and it sounded interesting, I said yes and tried my best, again and again. During my morning power walk, I silently list things for which I'm thankful, including this church. In addition to valued worship services and those who create them, and relationships with quality people, I list being a valued member of the pastoral care team and having opportunities to learn, lead, grow, and serve. I appreciate so much opportunities UUCB has given me to grow more into my potential and make a positive difference in my corner of the world. Next time someone asks you, I hope you'll say yes. And I also hope you'll be the one to ask someone else to help others grow like they've helped me. Thank you.
Our reading today, titled The Grout, is written by Reverend Marcus Hartleaf, one of UUCB's former intern ministers. The Unitarian congregation where I served as an intern made a mosaic tree of life the summer before I arrived. Congregants of all ages came together to craft the tree's leaves, using bits and pieces of broken ceramics, jewelry, glass, and stone. There are many precious personal items in the tree, including fragments of the Berlin Wall, a father's watch face, pieces of great-grandmother's china, and a key to the front door of a loved home. Like the members of the community that brought them together, each part is imbued with memories and meaning. Each fragment holds a piece of truth. Unitarian Universalists are mosaic makers. We are a people who bring together the broken pieces of our histories and the shining pieces of our seeking, and piece by piece create a mosaic religion. Our tree of life is found in the stories of our living tradition. The bead from a transformational moment of worship at a youth conference. The bit of paper stamped with the blazing emblem of the Unitarian Service Committee that saved lives during World War II. The button or patch on a backpack that proudly proclaims the first justice issue that lit our souls on fire. But our mosaic making tells another story too, one that is often more difficult to see, one that is essential to the purpose of religious community, one that lies not in the beautiful and broken bits and pieces, but in the grout. Grout, the chalky, gritty stuff that is squeezed between the cracks of tiles. In a mosaic, the grout holds the image together, unifying disparate pieces into a whole. The grout of a community takes years to lay and settle. Grout happens in board meetings and committee meetings and endless emails and slow-moving institutions. It is in weekly potlucks shared by neighbors, a ride to church, and coffee in the social hall after service. While the folks who show up for church only on Christmas and Easter will hopefully enjoy the beauty of the mosaic they find, they may never know the power of the grout that holds us through all the seasons of life. We help to make the grout when we learn each other's names and when we reach out across generational divides. We help to make grout when we show up on Sunday morning without having checked first to see if we're interested in the sermon topic. When a newborn arrives to be blessed by the community, it is the grout that enables us to welcome them. And it is in the grout that we rest when we gather to grieve and memorialize a beloved one who has died. Hold us, O grout. Gather us in through time and space and make all our broken pieces whole in community. In our multiplicity, make us one. From each of our jagged edges, give us the shape of a communal beauty.
There's a reading in the Gray Hymnal by George Odell about community that I absolutely love. It's one that I'm betting you may have heard at least a few times too. Here's how it goes. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair and temptation and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. How true is all of that? Every single part of it. How true is that? We need one another through so many times and throughout our lives. All our lives we need others, and they need us. We need one another to hold us, to be there with us, to be there, and for there to be someone that we can be there with. We need to be able to belong. In so many ways, communities and connections come down to belonging, having a people we can belong with. And to be truthful, that has gotten harder and harder and harder in our world. Celtic poet and great thinker John O'Donohue has this beautiful thing that he says about belonging. I'll read the whole thing first and then we'll go through it in pieces. Here's what John O'Donohue says. In postmodern culture, there is a deep hunger to belong. An increasing majority of people feel isolated and marginalized. Experience is haunted by fragmentation. Many of the traditional shelters are in ruins. Society itself is losing the art of fostering community. Consumerism instead is now propelling life towards the lonely isolation of individualism. Technology pretends to unite us, yet more often than not, all it delivers are simulated images. The global village, as we call it, has no roads or neighbors. It is a faceless limbo from which all individuality has been abstracted. From this perspective, he goes on, it seems we are in the midst of a huge crisis of belonging. When the outer cultural shelters are in ruins, we need to explore and reawaken the depths of belonging in the human mind and soul. Perhaps the recognition of the depth of our hunger to belong may gradually assist us in awakening new and unexpected possibilities of community and friendship. O'Donohue's statement is absolutely filled with things to unpack about belonging and human nature. To start with, he reminds us of the core human need to belong and to have somewhere we can belong. It's a core human need and it's a core spiritual need. We have a deep hunger to have somewhere we can belong, places where we can be seen, be known, be heard, places where we can each be accepted for who we are and as we are. And to have places where we can feel like we fit in, where we're needed and wanted. That all put together, that's belonging. However, it seems in just the pre-COVID society, it seems there are fewer and fewer places in our society and in our lives where we can truly find that. And in our COVID-infused society, that's even more true. So here, let's go back to what O'Donohue said. In postmodern culture, there is a deep hunger to belong. But, he goes on, an increasing majority of people feel isolated and marginalized. Experience is haunted by fragmentation. Many of the traditional shelters are in ruins. Society is losing the art of fostering community. So looking at the numbers and at communities and voluntary associations and their membership numbers, many trends are clear. Organization membership and community participation continue on a downward trend, and civic participation continues to fall as well. We have occasional outliers like elections that seem to be the peak of interest and participation, but overall, civic participation continues to be low and lower. You can even see these trends in numbers about church membership and church participation. So here's a couple numbers for us. In 2005, 47% of congregations saw fewer than 100 folks on Sundays. That was 2005. 10 years later, that number had risen to 58%. Median attendance in 2005 was 129 across all American congregations. And just 10 years later, that fell to a median of 80. 129 down to 80. Author Tom Rainer notes that about 20 years ago, a church member was considered active in church if they attended 3 times a week. Today, a church member is considered active if they attend something 3 times a month. and add into that all of the number of religiously unaffiliated folks, which continues to rise nationwide. You can probably think of organizations that existed 20 or 30 years ago, but don't anymore. For example, 4-H clubs used to be incredibly prolific. And in some areas, they're still around, but not nearly to the same degree. A friend of mine was recently looking for any 4-H clubs active in the Phoenix area, and all she found was a single club in the entire Phoenix metro area, a single club that was focused on horseback riding. And there are many other examples of this too. Society is losing the art of fostering community. With the changes the pandemic has wrought on how we gather and the types and kinds of communities we can gather in, there's no telling what kind of changes may be ahead as well. So in his quote, O'Donohue goes on, "Consumerism," he said, "is now propelling life towards the lonely isolation of individualism. Technology pretends to unite us, yet more often than not, all it delivers are simulated images." Now, technology is something I talk about on a regular basis, and some of this may seem weird coming from a self-proclaimed tech geek. But while technology does enable connections over greater distances than before, which we know even better today than ever, even to someone or someone's idea from across the globe, technology hasn't enhanced connections or community or belonging at all. Despite the increased possibility for connection, loneliness has continued to grow. And in this time, even though we can't see one another, technology is simulating personal connection, but I don't think I could say it is stimulating personal connections. We live in a time of profound loneliness that is even more pronounced now than only 25 years ago. There was a study done on loneliness in the United States in 1985 and then repeated in 2004. And even though this study is a little bit old at this point, the trends continue. So in 1985, 10% of those surveyed said they had no one with whom they could share personal information, and an additional 5% had only their spouses or partners. Among all who were surveyed, the average number of confidants was only 3 people. Okay, so fast forward that to 2004, let's take it, when technologies would seem to make connecting easier. In this time of social media and unlimited long-distance calling and texting, instead of 10%, 24% of Americans said they had no one with whom they could connect on a personal level. And a total of 53% surveyed said they had no one outside of their own family. Our time is one of increasing and widespread loneliness. A recent study found that 76% of respondents showed acute signs of loneliness. 76% rated themselves as moderately or highly lonely. As they pointed out, there's a misperception that loneliness means social isolation. Let's try that again. There's a misperception that loneliness means social isolation. Loneliness is subjective. It's about what you feel. The definition of loneliness is distress because of a discrepancy between actual social relationships and desired social relationships. There's a discrepancy between what you want and what you have. People can feel lonely even if they're married and have a network of friends, if in their hearts it's not what they're really yearning for in terms of connection. Loneliness can be more acute during some periods of life than others. The same study found 3 peak times for loneliness. First, when folks are in their late 20s and making lots of decisions about their lives. The next one, when folks are in their mid-50s. And the last, when folks are in their 80s, beginning to face increasing limitations from health and mobility changes. Another time of peak loneliness and isolation is when folks have recently retired or recently moved. In the process of leaving behind different communities they've been connected to, possibly connected to for many years. And the loss of family members or partners can be a huge shift in isolation, and times when it's even more important to have places where folks belong and have meaningful connections with others. O'Donohue reminds us that the, quote, global village has no roads or neighbors. It is a faceless limbo from which all individuality has been abstracted. Now, we talk a lot about the global village, and there are some really, really great things that have come from the worldwide connections and sharing that can now take place. But to be truthful, it's also easy to get lost in the scale of things as individuals or in terms of individual relationships. We need things on a human scale, and hearing about events or ideas on the other side of the planet just doesn't make those kind of connections happen. Nor does being able to do business across vast distances or being able to make and distribute products across worldwide supply chains. This global village and global networks haven't created human-scale communities. They haven't enhanced connections and belonging on that small level. We need that more than ever. And all of this, more distance, has crept in during this time of social distancing and isolation and quarantining for our health. How many of you yearn to be together again? As I do as well. So, in a sense, it's even misleading to talk about this global community as a village. It's really the opposite of a village. To me, a village means a small-ish place where everyone generally knows everyone else. Things going on for them and their families. They care for each other and connections with each other because it just happens all over the place when you know folks on that level. That's something that I don't think our neighborhoods even do that well anymore. We might know some neighbors, might say hi to others when we see them, when we walk by, but neighborhoods as a whole don't function much like villages. Even in apartment buildings I've been in, where we're literally living within the same walls, sharing walls between each other. I might know my immediate neighbors, or I might not, but I certainly don't know folks on other levels, and certainly not folks in neighboring buildings, even if we're in the same complex. Now, there are some neighborhoods and some cultures, definitely cultures where this may be different. But by and large, we could certainly use some more village-like spaces and village-like connections. O'Donohue challenges us with this. He says, it seems we're in the midst of a huge crisis of belonging. When the outer cultural shelters are in ruins, we need to explore and reawaken the depths of belonging in the human mind and soul. We are in the midst of a huge crisis of belonging, this huge crisis of community and connection. I worry about what it means for us in our local areas as much as what it means for us as a country. Our outer cultural shelters are absolutely in ruins. The changes and challenges in the world continue to mount, and the traditions we fall back on are crumbling. Problem is, it's not easy to build new ones. Certainly not right away, and certainly not with continuing challenges like the pandemic mounting around us. As we're shifting away from some types of communities and some types of membership and some types of participation, we don't really have the replacements we're shifting to. And add that to the increasingly distant neighborhoods in which we live, which necessitate driving greater and greater distances, and the increasing polarity in our country when differences of opinion, differences in the way we talk, we see, differences in the things we hear. This ever-increasing distance between us. We are in a huge crisis of connection and belonging. But just as much as we're in a crisis, there are solutions that naming this crisis proposes. We name this as a crisis of belonging and loneliness, and we do this from within a community of belonging and connection, and a community that does partnerships fairly well. The opposite of loneliness and rejection is belonging and community. I hope that is something we can foster here in our congregation and continue to foster, whether through the connections and friendships folks make, the connections that folks make in our chalice circles and other small groups, and even in our committees and working groups. Now, I don't think we can fix the huge issues in our world, but that doesn't mean that we can't create a loving community of belonging and care right here where we are. O'Donoghue finished his words with this idea as well, and I'm going to get to finishing with this too. Perhaps, he said, the recognition of the depth of our hunger to belong may gradually assist us in awakening new and unexpected possibilities of community and friendship. Let's let that awaken. We are called on to nurture the communities and places of belonging that are already here, as well as seek out and awaken new possibilities as well. The challenges we face and that we will face are mounting and will require new ways of thinking, as well as adaptation of our existing ways. And the growing complexity in our world and health systems have added even more layers of challenges. We don't know what these new ways of thinking, these new ways of doing things will be yet, but I do know that we don't have a choice. We have to try to find out. Because one thing through all of this, one thing remains true and will always be true. We need one another. All throughout our lives, we need one another, and others are in need of us. Let us move towards the communities and the connections and the belonging that we can build together. May it be so.
There's nothing like belonging to a community that values people, the environment, good values, our children, what's going to come in the future. I can actually think of no better way to try to leave a living legacy than to contribute to UUCB, to Unitarian Universalism. In this particular way, in this local community, with people whom I love, that I've grown to respect through work, through play, through sharing our life trials and joys. I pledge to give as much of myself and my treasure as I possibly can while taking care of myself, because I can and because I want to. This is my covenant with all of you. Thank you. Thank you for having me in our beloved community.
Hi, my name is Lonnie Mosley, and I've been part of this incredible congregation since 2006. What I've experienced at UUCB has been a gift to my life. I've been in community with and interacted with 1-year-olds as well as 100-year-olds. And as an African American, I've learned so much about my history and my heroes because of this congregation's commitment to social justice. And not just from their words, they have courageously walked their talk. And they've also wept with me when the pain of injustice has overwhelmed me. It's at UUCB that I learned to trust,
to listen, and to ultimately love. Why do I make a financial commitment to keeping the doors open and the lights on and the programs going at UUCB? Because nowhere else have I been able to bring my whole self to engage in so many opportunities for spiritual and personal growth. And it's here at UUCB that I am held in a covenant of love and respect. I pledge with such pleasure.
UUCB continues to need your gifts and support as we commit together to making ours a vibrant, loving community that inspires spiritual growth, social justice work, and lives of integrity and service. We hope you will continue to practice generosity this year, especially with our Good Neighbor organizations. This month, we are sharing half of our offerings with Collaborizing to support the good work they do in our wider community. Collaborizing's mission is to explore humanity through social and cultural exchange, focusing on racial equity. Collaborizing also maintains a community gardening project in the Richmond Greenway. Offerings of any value are received with gratitude. More details on how to give electronically will appear on your screen as the offertory begins. Thank you.
Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service.
It is always so good to be with all of you in praise and song. Before we shift to our coffee hour on Zoom, I'd like to encourage you to stay informed about and involved in all that's going on in our congregation by exploring our website, uucb.org. Among other things, you can find a link under News to the Week Ahead, our weekly email newsletter, which contains information about upcoming activities. As we prepare to leave the worship service, here are just a couple of important announcements. For our 2021 Lawrence Lecture, to be held February 26th from 6 to 8 p.m., we are very excited to welcome the Reverend Jacqueline Lewis, activist and public theologian, whose message is love God, neighbor, and self. Love, period. Everything else is commentary. The Zoom link is on our website and in the week ahead. And second, have you ever considered becoming a worship associate? We currently have a few openings. Please see the UUCB Worship Associates page on our website for a description of what's involved. And if you are interested, we hope you will contact Reverend Michelle or any one of us current or recent worship associates. And now, please join us in singing our closing song, Love Will Guide Us. The words will be on the screen.
Love will guide us, peace has dried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has dried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Our time together may have ended, but our connection to one another and to this community remains. Together, may we take the path of justice. May we speak words of love. May we live selfless deeds. May we trod gently upon our earth. And may we fill our world with compassion. Until we see one another again, remember you're never all alone. Blessed be.